Ever since Vane had crawled out of the swamp with his brother on Mardi Gras night, they had been lying low at Sanctuary, a bar owned by a clan of Katagaria bears who welcomed in all strays, no matter where they came from. Human, daemon, Acolyte, Dark Hunter, Dream Hunter, or Were Hunter. So long as you kept the peace and threatened no one, the bears allowed you to stay and live. But no matter what the Peltier bears told him, he knew the truth. Both he and Fang were living under a death sentence, and there was no place safe for them. They had to get mobile before their father realized they were still alive. The minute he did, a team of assassins would be sent for them. Vane could take them on, but not if he had to drag a 120-pound comatose wolf behind him. He needed Fang awake and alert. Most of all, he needed his brother willing to fight again. But nothing seemed to reach Fang, who had yet to move out of his bed. Nothing. "I miss you, Fang," he whispered under his breath, as his throat tightened with grief. It was so hard to make it alone in the world, to have no one to talk to, no one to trust. He wanted his brother and sister back so badly that he would gladly sell his soul for it. But they were both gone now. There was no one left for him. No one. Sighing, he tucked his hands in his pockets and turned onto Iberville as he walked through the French Quarter. He wasn't even sure why he cared anymore anyway. He might as well let his father have him. What difference did it make? But Vane had spent the whole of his life fighting. It was all he knew or understood. He couldn't do as Fang and just lie down and wait for death. There had to be something out there that could reach his brother. Something out there that could make both of them want to live again. Vane paused as he neared one of those women's shops that were scattered throughout the French Quarter. It was a large red brick building trimmed in black and burgundy. The entire front of it was made of glass that showed inside, where the store was littered with lacy women's things and delicate feminine tchotchkes. But it wasn't the merchandise that made him pause. It was her. The woman he'd thought he would never see again. Bride. He'd seen her only once, and then only briefly as he guarded Sunshine Running Wolf in Jackson Square, while the artist had sold her artwork to tourists. Oblivious to him, Bride had come up to Sunshine and the two of them had talked for a few minutes. Then Bride had walked out of his life completely. Even though he'd wanted to follow after her, Vane had known better. Humans and wolves didn't mix. And definitely not wolves who were as screwed up as he was. So he'd sat idly by even while every molecule of his body had screamed out for him to go after her. Bride had been the most beautiful woman Vane had ever seen. She still was. Her long auburn hair was pulled up into a messy bun on top of her head that left curls of it to caress her porcelain face. She wore a long, black dress that flowed around her body as she jerked a vacuum cleaner across the carpet. Every animal instinct in his body roared to life as he saw her again. The feeling was primal, demanding, needful, and it wouldn't listen to reason. Against his will, he found himself headed toward her. It wasn't until he had opened the burgundy door that he realized she was crying. Fierce anger tore through him. It was bad enough that his life sucked. The last thing he wanted was to see someone like her cry. Bride paused her vacuuming and looked up as she heard someone entering her shop. Her breath caught in her throat. Never in her life had she seen a more handsome man. Never. At first glance, his hair was dark brown, but in reality, it was made up of all colors. Ash, auburn, black, brown, mahogany, even some blonde. She'd never seen hair like that on anyone. Long and wavy, it was pulled back into a sexy ponytail. Better yet, his white t-shirt was pulled tight over a body that most women only saw in the best magazine ads. Tall and lean, that body begged a woman to caress it just to see if it was as hard and perfect as it appeared. His handsome features were sharp, chiseled, and he had a day's growth of beard on his face. It was the face of a rebel who didn't cater to current fashions. One who lived his life solely on his own terms. It was obvious that no one told this man how to do anything. He was gorgeous. Bride couldn't see his eyes for the dark sunglasses he wore, but she sensed his gaze, felt it like a smoldering touch. This man was tough, fierce, and it sent a wave of panic through her. Why would someone like this be in a shop that specialized in women's accessories? Surely he wasn't going to rob her. The vacuum, which he hadn't moved a single millimeter since he'd entered her store, started to whine and smoke in protest. Drawing her breath in sharply, Bride quickly turned it off and fanned the motor with her hand. "Can I help you?" she asked as she struggled to put it behind the counter. Heat suffused her cheeks as the motor continued to smoke and spit. It added a not-so-pleasant odor of burning dust to the potpourri-scented candles she used. She smiled lamely at the devastatingly hot god who stood so nonchalantly in her store. "Sorry about that." Vane closed his eyes as he savored the melodic southern lilt of her voice. It reached deep inside him, making his whole body burn for her. But she was scared of him. His animal half sensed it, and that was the last thing his human half wanted. Reaching up, he pulled the sunglasses off and offered her a small smile. "Hi." It didn't help. If anything, the sight of his eyes made her even more nervous. Damn. Bride was stunned. She wouldn't have thought he could ever become better looking. But with that devilish grin, he did. Worse, the intense, feral look of that languid hazel-green gaze made her shivery and hot. Never in her life had she seen a man even 1/10 as good-looking as this one. "Hi," she said back, feeling like 9 kinds of stupid. His gaze finally left her and went around the store to her various displays. "I'm looking for a present," he said in that deeply hypnotic voice. She could have listened to him speak for hours, and for some reason she couldn't explain. She wanted to hear him say her name. Bride cleared her throat and put those moronic thoughts away as she came out from behind her counter. If her cute ex couldn't stomach her looks, why would a god like this one give a rat's bottom about her? So she decided to calm down before she embarrassed herself with him. "Who is it for?" "Someone very special." "Your girlfriend?" His gaze came back to hers and made her tremble even more. He shook his head slightly. "I can never be so lucky," he said, his tone low, beguiling. What an odd thing for him to say. She couldn't imagine this guy having trouble getting any woman he wanted. Who on earth would say no to that? On second thought, she hoped she never met a woman that attractive. If she did, she would be morally obligated to run her over in her car. "How much you want to spend?" He shrugged. "Money doesn't mean anything to me." Bride blinked at that. Gorgeous and loaded. Man, some woman out there was lucky.